Quote, "The human body and mind share an incredible bond. Each significantly influences the other, crafting a link so intricate that any change in one aspect usually precipitates an adjustment in the other. One specific facet of this relationship that has garnered considerable interest in recent years is the connection between physical degeneration and mindset. An emerging body of research proposes that physical degeneration, the progressive loss of function, structure, and vitality in our bodies, is not merely an inevitable product of the chronological passage of time. Instead, is strongly influenced by our mental attitudes and perceptions." So is it age or is it mindset? Today on the Personal Edge Fitness Podcast.
Welcome to the Personal Edge Fitness Podcast
with Garrett Williamson.
Health, wellness, exercise, nutrition, and a whole lot more. Got questions? Call us and leave a message at 251-278-EDGE or message us at Personal Edge Fitness on Facebook and Instagram, at Team PE on Twitter, or personaledgefitness.com.
Good day and welcome to the Personal Edge Fitness Podcast. My name is Garrett Williamson. I'm president of Personal Edge Fitness. Thank you so much for joining me today and tuning into the podcast, continuing our series on is it age or is it something else? And today we're covering is it age or is it mindset? Now, if you have any questions about this podcast or any others, or as always, if you have a question dealing with dispelling the myths of health, fitness, and wellness, please reach out to us at area code 251-278-3343. That's 251-278-EDGE. You can also reach me at Garrett, Garrett, at personaledgefitness.com. That, of course, is our website. And also, Personal Edge Fitness is our Facebook page. Hit me up on Twitter at Team PE if you're so inclined. This is definitely my favorite topic, talking about the live age. Now, if you've heard the live age podcast or if one of my presentations in person about the live age, you know I always end with this one. And I bear down on it and I say that 60% of the reason why we degenerate deals with mindset. That's amazing because it all starts in the brain. You've heard me talk about this on the podcast, and if you're a client, we talked about this in your consult, that no matter what we do, as far as your workout program is concerned, no matter what your goals may be, it always starts with mindset. And I tell you that no matter what program we write up for you, it has to work for your head. Quite often we get the question on what is the best exercise, or the one we probably get the most is what's the best cardio to do. The answer to both of those questions, best exercise or best cardio, is the one that works for you. And when we say that, we're not talking so much about physical, we're talking about mental. Because it all starts with the mind. The different diet programs. You've heard me say before that I'm not opposed to any diet program that's not illegal, immoral, or fattening. One of my favorite comments to dealing with nutrition. But the reason I'm not opposed to any of those is the ones that work the best are the ones that work for your head. So many times that I'll talk to individuals that have tried a program and it seems to quote unquote work for them. And they want to encourage everybody to do it. Oh, this is the greatest program in the world. That's the program that works for their head. Now, I'm beating this to death because it all starts with the mind. Your brain is the most powerful organ in your body. It is the one organ that can cause you to leap, tall buildings with a single bound. There have been instances of incredible feats of strength done out of fear. There was one years ago. It happened where a man was working on his car and the jack slipped or something, and the car landed on top of him, and his son was able to remove enough pressure by lifting on the car in order to save his father. When they looked at this, they thought, well, this is just impossible for him to have had the strength. Well, the reason he was able to do that was his mindset. His fear drove him. And it was amazing what he was able to do. Well, used in reverse, used negatively, in other words, having a pessimistic mind or believing that you're going to fail, it has the same effect. You've most likely experienced this in your life in some way, shape, or form. If you, either you yourself or if you know of somebody else that has worried themselves sick. This happened to me. I was in college. I bought tickets to a performance in Atlanta and surprised my mother with it. She actually came up, and I was in Athens, and we met in Atlanta, and we were about to have dinner. And my mother said to me, do you have the tickets? Where my heart sunk. Literally, I felt something in the pit of my stomach, because I had left the tickets in Athens. Here my mother had driven all the way up from Mobile to Atlanta, and here we are sitting, about to go to the performance, and Athens is an hour away, and I had forgot the tickets for this performance, the whole reason that my mother came up to Atlanta, and I was physically ill. I remember the restaurant where we were. It was a great, great restaurant, and I literally could not eat. I don't even know if I ordered a meal because I thought we weren't getting into this performance, and I was so distraught by this. Now, this is tickets to a performance, not that big a deal. I understand. When we got to the theater, thank God, they were able to track the payment on my credit card and found that I had the tickets and let us in. Got through part of that performance. It was a fantastic performance, and I was starving. All of a sudden, I was hungry. And nothing happened. I wasn't ill. I didn't have the flu. Didn't really have an upset stomach. My mind had done that. And you've seen this yourself if you've ever worried about a child or worried about something happening, and so much so that it either causes you to eat or causes you to be sick at your stomach. The example that I use in my presentation, it's horrible. Don't like to talk about this, but it is something that happens. That is, if you happen to know somebody that has been ill or felt ill because they're grieving. The example that I use quite often is, or you've heard this story, gosh, that spouse, that lady, that gentleman, they were the picture of health. They were in great shape. And then their spouse passed away. And a year later, they passed away. They rapidly declined. That's mindset. That's somebody that actually grieved themselves to death. That's how powerful the brain is. So how does it relate to this topic? And as usual, I have studies to back this up. I can make this podcast go on for hours if I were to pull all the studies that have been done on this. I don't even know all the studies. In fact, in researching this podcast, I came up with some new studies that I'd never heard of. And it was amazing finding the exact same thing. The way this relates is that if you constantly believe the lie of age, the ridiculous concept that as time passes on a calendar, we automatically deteriorate, and you believe that, you believe it. You believe the next day you're going to get worse. The next year you're going to get worse. You fear your birthday. Well, you're going to degenerate. You're going to degenerate strictly because of that. And you can say, oh, well, I had that, but my hip went out or my knee went out or something, whatever. I'm telling you, it starts with mindset. This is not a foreign topic to you, I'm sure. We got football season coming up here in the South. College football is mighty prevalent, and many people say we think of college football as a religion down here, and we always say, no, that's not true. It's far more serious than that. So I use the example of pick your favorite coach. I don't want to name a coach here and have a bunch of people turn me off because they don't like that team. But if that head coach stands in front of their team or spends the entire spring training and then fall practice or summer practice leading to the first game, and the first game happens to be all teams have it, happens to be a cupcake team, an easy team. But that coach and the entire coaching staff spends that spring training, that summer training, whatever, telling the team you don't have a snowball's chance against this team. Tells them they're worthless. There's no way they can do this. You're going to fail. You're going to believe it. Doesn't matter. It's fantastic. Preparation's great. You may make a game of it, but you're going to fail. Most likely that team is going to lose. And if they don't lose, if it's such a cupcake team, I promise you, they'll do far worse. That's not foreign to you. You tell your kid over and over and over and over and over again that they're not good enough. Oh, they're going to believe it. They're going to question their abilities. Well, what if you go to every health professional, and every health professional ties everything to your age? The example I use quite often is, Mr. Johnson goes in to see his doctor and says, Doc, I've got this kind of pain or whatever. It's in my shoulder. It's got this, that, and the other. And the first thing that this, and don't mean to pick on physicians, a personal trainer could do the same thing, a chiropractor, a physical therapist, a nutritionist, anybody in the health field could do the same thing. And the first thing they ask is, well, Mr. Johnson, how old are you? And Mr. Johnson hears that from everybody, including his own family. You're doing great for your age. You're doing wonderful, but you need to slow down. You know how old you are. Well, if you're beat over the head with that, everywhere you turn, how could you not believe it? I understand. This is why when I speak to people about the lie of age, this is why so many people are just, no, that's just not true. Oh, that's just not true. And I ask them, well, prove it. Give me an example, prove it. And they can't. They're stumped. And I can see it in their eyes. They're so frustrated because they're thinking, well, yeah, but this is just like breathing air. This just happens. And they can't give me any example. It's frustrating for them, and I understand that. But it's only that way because they've been told this. It's been beat into their head. And it starts with the mind. And the reason I say that we're hit everywhere with this, think about birthday cards. Another example I use. When you're 16, sweet 16, get your driver's license. Oh, this is great, fantastic. Hey, 18, you're legal now. You can tell your parents, hey, forget you, I'm making my own decisions. 21, look at there, you can drink now. When does this stop? When does this excitement about birthdays stop? I mean, you ask a 4-year-old that had a birthday last month and you ask him, hey, how old are you now? He's not going to tell you he's 4. He's going to tell you he's 4.5. Why? Because he's excited about his birthday. He's excited to be that age. When does this stop? Well, if it doesn't stop just before this, it stops on that 29th birthday. How many birthday cards you see that are, happy 29 plus 1, happy 29 and holding. There's a very famous Mr. Television Jack Benny, who used to say, he's celebrating his 3rd anniversary of his 29th birthday, the 4th or 5th anniversary, always, lying about his age. And you get black balloons for later birthdays. You're beat over the head with this everywhere. I'll be on this all day, but I've used any examples. But that mindset, believing you're going to fail, is what's causing you to fail. Believing you're going to deteriorate is what's causing you to deteriorate. I see it over and over again. And since I've been a personal trainer for 32 years, in all the training clients that I've worked with, the ones that have the most positive outlook, the lady that celebrated 10 years with me and said to me, when I was telling her about all the things that she had, all her triumphs, all her successes as far as her training was concerned, and she said something that stopped me in my tracks. It was amazing. She said, Garrett, there's nothing I can't do now that I could do 10 years ago. It hit me like a ton of bricks. There's nothing I can't do now that I could do 10 years ago. Well, here's the more amazing fact. She started with me when she was 66. She was now 76. And why? She had come up with that, which meant she had the right mindset. And after training people for 32 years, I can tell you the ones that have had the right mindset are the ones that have done the best. The ones that haven't have had the biggest struggles, no matter what physical ailments they may have, which is shocking. It's unbelievable. Well, let me give you some other proof instead of just, Garrett's examples. Well, got my glasses on today because I'm reading a lot of quotes here and a lot of different studies, but I always like to back it up with some good studies. And here's one. It's called the Harvard Study of Adult Development. Now, this one, I didn't dive deep into this when I came across this and Googling and researching some topics. But this one, I may have done a deep dive into. Harvard's done a lot of studies. They have an institute on aging, and they've done a lot of studies on this. And there's another one I'm going to use some quotes from my presentation on it, but this one was amazing. Listen to these numbers. It's one of the most comprehensive longitudinal studies in history, offers valuable insights. Starting in 1938, this study followed 724 men and women for over 80 years. I would say that's a rather comprehensive study. They followed him for over 80 years to understand what contributes to health and well-being. They didn't hear Garrett's podcast, and surprisingly enough, I wasn't around in 1938. While the study concentrated on various aspects, the findings did suggest a link between mental attitude and physical health outcomes. People with a more positive, optimistic outlook tended to have better health in later years. They also had a slower rate of physical decline and a lower risk of chronic illness compared to their more pessimistic counterparts. Okay, they had a bright and cheery outlook, and that's not a stretch. If you're a happier person, well, then you live longer. Okay, that's fine. Well, let's get a little more detailed in an exact mind-body connection. That's funny I said mind-body because this is from the Mind-Body Interactions and Health Study conducted in 2011. It was found that individuals with a positive psychological state, positive mindset, showed a significantly lower risk of heart disease, the number one killer, heart disease. This indicates that an optimistic mindset can protect against physical degeneration in one of the body's most crucial systems. I would say that the cardiovascular system is a rather crucial system, and that's not just for us that are exercise physiologists. Lower incidence of heart disease, the number one killer, just by having a positive mental outlook. Let me keep beating you over the head with studies here. Pardon me. Another Harvard-affiliated Massachusetts General Hospital. Participants underwent an 8-week mindfulness-based stress reduction program. This was not like the Harvard study of adult development, the one done in 1938. This went and studied a myriad of things, and they happened to find out some mental things. This was actually studying mindfulness-based stress reduction. Brain scans, getting deep here, this is far beyond an observational study. Brain scans taken before and after the program showed an increase in the gray matter density in the hippocampus. And this is the reason associated with learning and memory. I've talked about these in other podcasts. And a decrease in the amygdala. This is the region that's connected to stress and anxiety. This suggests that our mindset, when trained towards mindfulness, can improve both cognitive function and emotional well-being, which in turn slows physical degeneration. Stress, I've done a podcast on stress before. Fantastic presenter at ACSM Health Summit that spoke about stress. And what did she do? She said, what is stress? And so she went through the body talking about, you have a stressful situation come up, what physically happens in the body. And stress, like I've talked about before, is nothing different than fight or flight. That's exactly what it is. It's fight or flight. And so you have, just like in fight or flight, your ancestors running away from a saber-toothed tiger. By the way, archaeologists, please don't criticize my. I may have gotten the timeline wrong on saber-toothed tigers being around and what have you. But just for argument's sake, saber-toothed tiger is in your sights and about to start running at you. Okay, you're going to have fight or flight. Do I take this thing on or do I get out of here? And there's going to have physical reactions that happen in your body. You're going to lose your peripheral vision because you only need to focus on what's in front of you. Your body's going to focus all its energies on fight or flight. So we don't need digestion. That shuts down. Digestion stops. You're not able to go to the bathroom. Sphincters close up. Everything tightens up. Everything concentrates to the center of the body, basically conserving all energies and getting everything to go to the cardiopulmonary system. That's why you start breathing harder, trying to get more oxygen, trying to increase energy. These all happen strictly because something that happens in your mind. That's why the stress reduction is so important. If we're able to control stress, then we can control physical degeneration to our body. That stress, that same physical reaction to something going on in your mind is no different than if you're about to take a car and put it on a racetrack. I mean, you take it to its limits. You well know that you've done some degeneration to that motor, to that engine, to those tires, to the brakes, everything. Well, if you're constantly stressing the body, then you're constantly wearing down the body. And all of that starts from the mind. I could severely beat this topic to death, but this is why we see 60% of your degeneration, physical degeneration, comes from your brain. These connections have direct physical outcomes. And I'm going to finish this with some of the quotes that I'm actually reading from my own computer here, because these are actually examples that I use in my talk. It's another Harvard study, and it was amazing. If I wanted to make my talk go on forever, I would list all the examples from this. But this is a study on the influence of age-related cues on health and longevity. Cues. Now, thoughts in the mind. Younger spouses live shorter lives, and older spouses live longer lives than do controls. We see this in dogs. I'm in the animal rescue world, and when we find somebody that has an older dog, they're worried about, he's getting up there, or she's getting up there in age. We want to bring in a puppy to kind of let the older dog teach the puppy. So when they pass on and cross the rainbow bridge, we'll have this puppy up to speed. When they bring the puppy in, all of a sudden the older dog doesn't act as old anymore. That's what happens in older spouses with younger spouses. Women who color their hair, I love this one. Women who think they look younger after they have their hair colored or cut. Think about this, what I just said. Think they look younger. They may look, to everybody else, they may look twice their age. They may look not different at all, but they just think they look younger. Show a decrease in blood pressure. There were several other examples, but I want to get to my own little study that I do. And I say do because this one's ongoing. I have the privilege of representing Team USA in multisport athletics. I've talked about this before. I'm going to my 10th World Championship in Australia in the end of August of 2024 in aquathlon. And every time I'm there, they do a parade of nations. And I have an opportunity to meet athletes from all around the world. And my favorite thing is to go and find anybody that looks like they're a little long in the tooth. And I go and speak to them about their training, about their mind. And what I'm engaging is their mindset. And a gentleman I spoke to in 2016 in Cozumel, who's American, he was with his trainer, and this was his first multi-sport event he ever took part in, first world championships, and had done very well, and he was in his 60s. And I asked him, about his training, and this is my first one I've ever done, or whatever, and I always ask him the same question, will I see you next year? And his comment was, well, Lord willing. Well, you don't know, I'm 60 whatever. I might be there. Look at the difference between that and then the two gentlemen I interviewed from Australia. 2016, same race. They just got finished with the aquathlon. I asked them, well, I'll see you next year. Their question, they looked at each other, and I thought, oh, here it comes. Gosh, look how old we are. I don't know if I'm going to make it or whatever. No, they looked at each other because they needed to take a second. They didn't know which place I meant. They looked at me and said, well, what do you mean Penticton or Rotterdam? And that was what they were perplexed about. And I said, well, Penticton. Penticton, Canada, because I was competing in the aquabite that year, and it happened to be taking place at the Multisport Festival World Championships, which is in Penticton. Well, Rotterdam hosted the ITU Grand Final, is what they call it, and that was hosting other races in multisport, the aquathlon and the sprint triathlon and some others. And I said Penticton, and then they looked at each other again and said, oh, yeah, that's right, we're doing both of them. Now look at the difference. The gentleman in the 60s from America, well, I don't know, I'm an old guy, I have no idea. He just got finished racing in a world championship. Did great. Felt fine. No limitations. No cancer, no nothing. 60 years old, he's telling me, oh, gosh, I just don't know. And these two gentlemen are trying to decide which one I'm talking about. That's what they're perplexed about. And by the way, these two gentlemen were 83 and 84 years old. Mindset. If you believe you're going to fail, there's very little I can do to help you. But if you believe that I'm wrong, you believe that time passing on a calendar automatically causes you to deteriorate, I don't care what you say, give me a call, 251-278-3343. That's 251-278-EDGE. You can also reach me at Garrett, Garrett, at personaledgefitness.com. That is our website and our Facebook page. Hit me up on Twitter, or as it's known now, X, at Team PE. It starts with the mind. It's the reason why our mission statement is we seek to make people feel better about being themselves. Because if we do that, we've affected the mind. If we've affected the mind, we've definitely affected your body. We've made you live longer, made you feel better about being yourself. And that's why we're here, to help you reach your level of wellness. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thanks for listening to the Personal Edge Fitness Podcast with Garrett Williamson. Subscribe now and be a part of the show by calling 251-278-EDGE or message us on Facebook and Instagram at Personal Edge Fitness or at Team PE on Twitter, and visit us at personaledgefitness.com.